Cold turkey is wonderful on sandwiches, but as far as breaking habits go, guys, I got a better solution for you this new year. And I'm, of course, talking about my sponsor, Fume. Fume is an amazing, award-winning, innovative flavored air device, and it's built to help you part ways with old habits. Instead of electronics, vapors, and harmful chemicals, Fume is completely natural, and it uses flavored air. This is a habit you can feel free to enjoy, and it makes replacing your bad habit very easy. This will fill the void in a natural, guilt-free way. It's easy, enjoyable, and it's even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has tens of thousands of success stories. And there's no reason that the next success story can't be you. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial. This is so satisfying. Do you hear that? It's so satisfying to play with this thing. And it's designed with removable parts, and it's also got magnets for fidgeting. Pick up the Journey Pack today. Try it for yourself. Go to tryfume.com/Chael. That's going to get you 10% off. Or scan the QR code just as easy. Make sure you use the code Chael to get that 10% discount. Do you love your sport? Not do you love watching the sport or you love playing the sport. Do you love your sport? Okay. Would you do it in your backyard? If it was a one-man sport, you maybe have a ball, you don't need anybody, would you go alone in your backyard and would you play it? What if you need another guy? Would you and a buddy that came over go in the backyard and do it? No cameras, no one watching, no press, no uniforms. If you went in your backyard by yourself, if you went in your backyard with your buddy, have you disrespected your sport in any way? Do you love your sport? Would you play your sport on recess? Would you get a group of people together that didn't love the sport, didn't know a lot about the sport, but they were bodies, and if you had those bodies and you had the right equipment, you could then play the sport for the better part of 30 minutes before the principal calls you back in. If you did those things, have you disrespected your sport? It's an interesting question because I've heard that Jake Paul is disrespecting boxing. I've heard that Canelo Alvarez will not fight Jake Paul because Canelo Alvarez does not want a sideshow. He does not want a circus. He does not want to waste his time because he loves his sport. And that is a fascinating concept to me. Like, what part of that sport would Canelo love? What would he be holding true to? Is it the ring? Because Jake Paul's willing to meet him in a ring. Is it the attire? Is it the big gloves and the mouthpiece? Because Jake Paul's willing to wear the big gloves and put in the mouthpiece. Is it having an official present? Because Jake Paul is willing, after you bring the ring and you put in the mouthpiece, through those big gloves, to have an official present. So what part of that would be wrong for Canelo to do? What part of that would he be disrespecting? What part of that is a circus and or a sideshow that he is above? Or that he wouldn't want to be part of? And I'm just asking, why would you not want to be part of it? If you love it, if you're willing to do it in your garage, which I'm sure he's done many times, he's probably never done it on recess. I'll admit he's probably never boxed, but I bet you he would. I bet you he wished he could. I bet you if they had those gloves and those teachers weren't looking, he would have. I'll bet you, like any of you, he would have played and done his favorite sport anytime he got an opportunity. That's what I would bet. So why would he not do what's being called a sideshow? And it's very interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic that would happen to the greats. If somebody came over to your sport and they didn't belong, but they got a lot of attention, they made a lot of claims, they began to get the perception, they began to get the accolades, they began to get the money, they began to get the headlines that belonged to you and or somebody else. If you were a leader in that sport, you would take it all back. You would straighten that person out. And you might even do it for the betterment of fill in the blank. Table tennis, golf, Greco-Roman wrestling, whatever it might be. But those things would be near and dear to your heart if you truly believed in them. You would not just let somebody come over. You just wouldn't do it. There's not a sport out there. You ever want to spot a fake black belt? Somebody ever comes up to you and tells you they're a black belt in karate. Bring up a different art. Bring up Taekwondo. Tell them how great Taekwondo is. See if you can get that black belt to agree with you, because if you can, they're not a black belt. Just letting you know, piece of psychology, no black belt would ever turn on their own art. No karate black belt would ever concede in any argument that a jiu-jitsu black belt is more valuable. Just wouldn't happen. I came from the sport of wrestling. And I could not even begin to imagine that somebody would come out and begin to claim that they were better wrestlers than we were. Like, there's no part of it that we would have found funny. But there's also no part of it where we would have wished ill upon them. We would simply offer them a time, we'd shake hands, grab a hold of them, and then put their shoulders to the ground, and that conversation would be over. That would be that. And then if we weren't in the sport of wrestling that is so incredibly poorly ran, maybe we could even do it on cameras. Maybe we could even sell some tickets and some people would come. I mean, that's never happened in the sport of wrestling, but let's just say that that was a built-in mechanism and it was something that people wanted to see. If this guy, who wasn't as good as he claimed he was able to fill up one of those buildings, we'd let him. Believe me, we'd let him. And there's nobody that wouldn't show up. Jordan Burroughs show up, straighten that guy out. Kyle Snyder show up and straighten that guy out. David Taylor would walk right in the room. Nick Wazowski come right on in. He would never say, what are your credentials and where are your medals and you don't belong here. He would say, are you red or are you green? That's it. And they would go and then they would do the match. But Canelo won't fight Jake Paul because Jake Paul is making a mockery out of boxing. He's making a sideshow of it. He's making a circus out of it. What part of that is bad? Like, I won't even concede that he's doing those things. I won't concede any of that. When he started fighting and beating world champions, the gig was up, in my opinion. But let's say the gig wasn't up. Let's say he was being silly and he was being a fool, but he could fill up an arena. And he could get DAZN to air it. And before that, he could get Showtime to air it. What part of that isn't what you're looking for? I never got to find that myself. Wouldn't matter if it was my wrestling days or my mixed martial arts days. I never found it. But believe me, I would have loved to have an easy match against a guy that was perceived to be a hard match. Oh, and by the way, have a whole bunch of people tune in. Give me those accolades and that perceptions after I get rid of him because he's not very good and doesn't belong here in the first place. Like, if that was actually true, this would be a dream come true, not something that I would avoid. And I never get my way. I never do. Like, Chael the Fan can never get a win. But I do wish that Jake Paul would go out and try to make the Olympic team in boxing. I would have a ton of respect for that. That's when we would all know, okay, he really truly does love this. And it's nearly impossible to get a guy to agree to do something like that. It's nearly impossible. But as far as the attention goes and the accolades and the cameras and even the money, if Jake Paul came out and said that, if he then went to USAB, which he could just go online and do, and actually got a participation card, I mean, I'm just sharing with you, like, all the attention and all the money it's all right there. He would not have to lift a finger. He would not have to go out and promote and book Madison Square Garden and play the long game. He wouldn't have to do any of those things. He would get all the attention. Boom, it would be straight on him. It is the biggest sporting event in the world. It comes once every 4 years. And they try to rig the system all the time because it's nothing more right. Like, if you know the scumbags that run the NCAA, the scumbags that are the NCAA got nothing on the International Olympic Committee. I'm just sharing for you. and they would take one look at who the most not the best. They couldn't possibly care less who was the best. They will take one look at the registrants, who is most popular, and they will put tens of millions of dollars behind that person. And I think Jake Paul could make the team. I think Jake Paul is really good. I just share that for you. Do you want to know why Big Nogueira fed the bus a carrot? Do you want to know? Do you know why it wasn't Little Nog? Because Little Nog tried to make the Olympic team. That's why. Little Nog said he liked boxing, and then he went out in the amateur ranks and he won the national title for Brazil, which made him the #1 guy to represent the country in the Olympic Games. I can't remember what happened. I can't remember why he didn't go. Maybe he lost the final box off. I know he won the nationals, and I know he pursued it. He might have lost the final box off in Brazil, and he was an alternate for the Olympic team. It was a long time ago. I think it was 2012. Is that when they held the games in Rio? At any rate, I respected it. I knew it was true. I knew he really loved an art. I knew he really wanted to be good. And that's why Big Nog is the one that tried to feed the bus a carrot.